Supervisor Delmore?
Well, Mr. Chairman, once again, I want to say I concur with Supervisor Pinches in regard to the desire to have a more balanced commission and one that has some more representation from the game side, because I think this is bound to be, once again, filled with fishing interests, which are a big part of this, but I think it needs to be balanced between this Fish and Game Commission.
Okay, so a motion before us is to approve Mr. Ennis. Any further discussion on this motion?
Do I have a second?
There was a second.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
I'm going to support, I'm going to respect the Supervisor Colfax's recommendation for appointees on this. Everybody knows my position of getting the Fish and Game Commission more balanced, but I'm not going to oppose his recommendation for somebody from his district.
Okay. Any additional comments?
Which one's on the floor?
We're actually voting now on the coastal member at large, Mr. Ennis. If the Supervisor Colfax wants to bring his 5th district member, that'll be a second motion.
Yeah.
So Supervisor Smith.
Yes, to this recommended action. And to the question of balance, I mean, my understanding from asking what the makeup of the group is, the body, it's 7 members, so each of the supervisorial districts has an appointment that they recommend, and I think that we've always respected the recommendations of each district supervisor, and then there are 2 other spots. One is a coastal, one is an inland. So I think that the balance is already reflected in the makeup of the group, and you know, everyone can decide if their member is respecting their philosophy or whatever, and appoint accordingly.
Well, I don't have no problem with the appointment. I just, historically, I believe our Fish and Game Commission
Yeah.
has basically been a fish commission and not a Fish and Game Commission.
So-
And the reason I bring this up, maybe the board members in general will keep that in mind in future appointees. This is nothing about people that are looking out for the fish and everything, but I think there has to be a balance here. And I think, for whatever the reason, over the years, it's kind of tweaked out of balance.
Yeah.
And this board needs to recognize that and try to, through the appointment process, get that perspective back in balance. But I'm not going to oppose Supervisor Colfax's recommendation.
It was actually mine, but
Oh, okay.
whatever.
Either one.
Yeah.
Both of them. Okay.
Okay. The motion before us is approval of John Ennis for the coastal member at large. Any further discussion on that motion? Okay, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. To the supervisor in the 5th district, you wish to make an appointment at this time?
I'd like to reappoint Craig Bell as 5th District Representative on the Fish and Game Commission.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion to the motion.
I have one question.
Supervisor Pinches.
Has Mr. Bell ever had a conflict with receiving Fish and Game grants that were filtered through the Fish and Game Commission?
Who's that question directed to?
Anybody that can answer it? Because I know he has been a recipient of Fish and Game grants.
opinions on that, Supervisor.
Huh?
I think you'll find differing opinions on that question, depending on who you ask.
Well, I want to know what the facts are.
It's never been raised in the 10 years that he was on the Fish and Game Commission when I came on the board, and I don't recall it ever being raised. So if there are different opinions on this,
Well, I'm not
simply-
asking for, I just want to know what the facts are.
yeah.
Because if it has happened, I think it's a definite conflict.
There have been issues raised with Mr. Bell in the past about his perceived bias. Supervisor Delbar has.
No,
raised-
I'm not talking about bias. I'm
Well,
talking
I know,
about
I understand
actually.
that, but that's about as far,
Yeah.
I think here, that if there were such conflicts, these would have been raised a bit more forcefully, or Mr. Bell would have disqualified him, or one of the members of the Fish and Game Commission would have raised it over time. So I would say it's a non-issue.
Well, the
unless we
person
have-
contacting me just want to know what the facts are, and I don't know. It's an attempt to try to get the facts. I mean,
Well, I would say here, the fact as recalled by this supervisor is there's never been this question ever raised as to whether there's a conflict. That's good enough for me.
well, I just want to know if if there was a, because it's definitely a conflict, if any member of our Fish and Game Commission is a financial benefactor of a Fish and Game grant or something, that's a definite conflict.
Yeah.
That's just fact.
Well, without knowing the specific facts, I wouldn't want to render an opinion on that, and I'm unaware of any issues that have ever been raised. If somebody wants me to look into that, I'd be happy to do that, but so far, I've never encountered the issue.
Okay, is the maker of the motion willing to, or requesting further information to clarify this issue?
Well, I think here, it's not appropriate unless, to simply say, has so-and-so ever had a conflict in kind of a general way, is to impute certain irregularity here. I don't think it's.
I'd almost have to say the entire commission would have to be reviewed to not impugn any individual.
Well,
Right.
it's really a
That's right.
responsibility of the individual. For instance, if you or I or anybody has a conflict here, a financial conflict over $1,000, we have to basically
Declare.
get out of the way.
Yeah.
And that's all. I'm just trying to protect, if there's accusations out there that people think that's happening, it's an effort to kind of clean that issue up.
There have been
I
disagreements.
don't think it should hold up the appointment right now.
Right.
Thank you, sir. So let's take the vote and call for a voice vote on the motion to appoint Craig Bell, reappoint Craig Bell to the Fish and Game Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No. 3-2 vote approved for Mr. Bell, with Supervisors Delbar and myself dissenting. He is reappointed. Okay, I believe that does conclude today's meeting. Anything from staff for the good of the order? Seeing none, I'll adjourn the meeting till next week. Same place, same location. Okay,